All right, guys, let's welcome Wednesday 13 back to the Talk to Me podcast. Wednesday, how are we doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Well, you had recently posted about signing your solo deal like 20 years ago with
Mhm,
Roadrunner. So yeah, so you had reflected on 20 years of a solo
mhm,
deal with Roadrunner, and kind of
mhm.
not knowing if it was going to be one album or like what we're talking about today, the 10th one coming up. So kind of go
Yeah.
back to that, man. Go back to the Murderdolls kind of disbanding and you going out solo.
Well, basically, Murderdolls came out in 2002, and we toured for an entire year. So basically, up to 2003, and Joey was kind of forced back to Slipknot. Corey was doing Stone Sour at the same time, and I don't think either one of them wanted to stop the momentum that we'd both created with the bands. But yeah, they basically went back to Slipknot to do the third album, and I just came out of this tornado of a dream come true, and I'm like, well, what am I going to do now? And Joey had kind of dangled the carrot of, oh, this is only going to be for like 6 months. Slipknot's only going to do 6 months worth of shows, and then that turned into 2 years or 3 years,
Yeah.
and but at the time I was nervous, and I didn't want to go back to working a day job, and so I started writing music, and once I realized Murderdolls wasn't going to do anything, I kind of tweaked the music a bit. I thought, well, how can I make it different? So I tuned the guitars a little different. Murderdolls was a standard 440 tuning, and I went to a drop C tuning. I thought that would separate it, and
Right.
I guess it kind of did until we did the second Murderdolls record, and we did a drop C tuning, and then it was back to the thing again. But so yeah, I was nervous. I started writing music, and I remember sending Monty Connor demos that I did on this, like right at my feet here is the same 20-year-old Digitech foot pedal that I basically had a recording. It had 3 minutes of recording time in it, and I did demos. Somehow hooked it to a CD burner, put it on my computer, or burned a CD and sent it to Monty. And I sent him like 10 or 12 ideas, and he thought it was really cool. And he went to the head of Roadrunner and said, "Hey, Wednesday wants to do his own stuff. What do you guys think?" And they said, "No, we, we don't want this." And I went, "Okay." That's what I figured they would say. But I was still signed to Roadrunner, and miraculously, like within that same week of them saying no, I got a phone call from this guy at a label, and he was like, "Hey, I'm a big fan of Murderdolls, but I liked your band prior to that, Frankenstein Drag Queens, and which is the material used on Murderdolls." And he was like, "I'm with this label called Ryko Disc, and we want to release your albums from that." And I went, "Oh yeah, well, how would you like a Wednesday 13 solo record?" He went, "Okay." So I was like, "Well, I'm still signed to Roadrunner, so you have to write me a contract out, and I have to give it to them, and they got to sign off." That's just the basic sort of deal of it.
Mhm.
So they wrote me a contract out for a solo deal. I took it to Roadrunner and said, "Hey, you guys didn't want it. This guy wants it, so can you sign off on it?" And they said, "Oh, well, we kind of want you now."
Right.
And then
Nice.
that's how I got my deal. I got my deal because somebody else wanted it, and they went, "Oh well, maybe we'll take it." And but I was so glad they did, because I had so much momentum built up with Murder Dolls, with Roadrunner, and I had a team there that I trusted. And so I did my first deal with them, and they flew me up to New York City around this time 20 years ago, and I sit in the office with Monty Connor, and he and I remember he had what he thought was Grandpa Al Lewis's from the Munsters phone number,
Okay.
because we somehow started talking about the Munsters, and he said, "Hey, let's call him." And he had like a landline, and we sort of prank called. We didn't really prank call. We just called this number, and Al Lewis answered the phone and said, "Hello." And Monty said, "Al Lewis, please." And he goes, "Who's calling?" And you could tell it was Grandpa Monster, pissed that someone was calling his house. And I remember doing that. That was a cool time.
You should have had him come out for the first album, like do some
Oh,
spoken
well,
word
he
stuff for
didn't.
it or something.
He didn't really want our phone call, so getting him out to a show would have been Yeah, but I remember doing that. That was such a cool time, and it just felt, it was just a really cool time. Like they flew me up to the office, and I met everyone, and then I came back from that, and I did like my second UK tour, which before the album even came out. So it was just a real cool, exciting time, and it just felt like nothing could go wrong around that time.
It's got to be validating for you too to kind of sign the solo deal with Roadrunner, because obviously the Murder Dolls get signed mainly probably because of Joey and Joey's
Right.
relationship with Roadrunner, and
Hmm.
Slipknot being what they are, the machine that they are, kind of anything with that Slipknot tag on it's going to probably
Yeah.
sell some copies, things like that. So you actually getting a solo record through them,
Yeah.
no matter how you got it, it's got to be validating.
It felt good. It was I was really proud of it. I'm proud of it, you know. I mean, to get a solo deal off being what was considered a side project was,
Mhm.
it was just like, how was this happening for me? You know, so I've had a really interesting past and how things have happened, you know. And at the time, Roadrunner, I mean, it's still look back on, there was a lot of great bands and a lot of great releases on that label.
Oh yeah, and it's got to be great having Monty Connor kind of giving the stamp of approval too. I mean, it's funny. I'm
Yeah.
friendly with him on Facebook, and he'll comment on my things sometimes. And still to
Yeah.
this day, I'm like, "Holy shit, man! That's the guy that signed, Sepultura."
Yeah.
Like every time I see his name pop up.
Yeah, you know, it was crazy. So Monty was the guy that got me signed to the solo deal. Pretty much. I mean, he was definitely pulling for me, and he was a big fan of Murderdolls, and he liked my band prior to that as well. And but he was also the one that told me I was dropped from Roadrunner too. You know, Monty's just, if you know him, he's honest about stuff. And he was like, "Hey, Wednesday," and it was around this time, 19 years ago, because it was only a year I was signed,
Right.
and he called me right around Christmas, and he was like, "Hey," it's like, "Hey," and he said, "I wanted to call you before you got like an email or something," and he said, "Well, because the label didn't pick up the option," and I was like, "Oh, that's a bummer." And he's like, "Yeah," and I remember him saying this. He said, "You know," he goes, "it's nothing to be ashamed of or anything. He goes, you did really well." He said, "Your record sold about 50,000 copies worldwide. You know, that's not bad." And I'm just remember hearing that number, and I went, that sounds really good. Why why are you dropping us? You know, but
Yeah.
again, it was, to sell 50,000 records now.
Oh yeah.
That's, you know what I mean? Like that's crazy. So it was a fun run, and then I signed with Nuclear Blast again later on with Wednesday 13 with Monty again. So I've just had a cool history with the label and Monty, and you know, it's all, when I look back on all of this, it's all fun times for me. Nothing's ever like, oh, even getting dropped from Roadrunner is not a bummer for me. I look back on it was a cool thing. I was all these steps led to where I am today.
That's awesome. So now when whatever label that you're on throughout time, if they don't pick
Mhm.
up an option or say we're moving on, it's just like, okay, well, I'll just move on to the next one. You're not like, oh my
Yeah.
God, the world has ended.
No, and I think that that has been the case for a lot of bands. I mean, a lot of bands, really, your whole life, you know, at least from my era of growing up, you studied as a teenager, and you were hoping you would be signed on a record deal, and you worked your whole life, it felt like, to get to that deal, and to have that pulled out from under you. There's a lot of bands that you know, I don't even know where to start, but there's a lot of bands that didn't, you know, they didn't recover from that. They got signed and they got dropped, and then they were done, and they quit doing it, or they just or they people who took their lives because of it. You know, rock and roll has been cruel and kind to a lot of people, but for me, getting that news, you know, back early in the day, I don't know, I never let those things bother me. I always used it as a, going, well, all right, well, fuck you, I'll, you drop me, I'll get over here, you know. And that kind of mentality just got me to the next one and the next one, and I don't even know how many labels I've been on now.
You've spent
So
the last year or so kind of celebrating the Murder Dolls and going out
mhm.
and playing those songs, and obviously tributizing Joey and all that. Kind of talk about how is, if it's been emotional for you every night, if people are kind of coming up to you a little bit more than they normally would, like talking about Joey and things like that, and kind of the emotions around a tour like that for you.
Yeah, this past tour in the UK and Europe was definitely emotional, because when I was over there this last time, I realized a lot of places that we were playing. My first time ever going there was with Joey, and even before we even toured, Murder Dolls did like a press tour where we went around. We went through Holland and Germany and Italy and all France and all these places that I remember going to the very first time, and Joey was my tour guide. This is what we
Right.
do here. And I remember this time specifically because we're playing these songs, and it just was on my mind, and it's going, whoa, this. The last show we were in Amsterdam, and we spent like 3-4 days there, and I just remember just walking the streets going, man, I remember walking down the street here and Joey telling me about, watch out for that guy. We're getting close to the red light district. Be careful. They're going to sell you drugs, or they'll try to, and it was just a really, really, I don't know. I thought about him a lot more than usual on this last tour. And a lot of people, every night when I would have my speech where I would say, 20 years ago, 22 years ago, Joey Jordison brought me over here, and I'd say his name, and
Mhm.
I'd just hold the microphone out. And some nights, was bigger than others. Like we played in Nottingham at this really cool venue, it's legendary there, called Rock City, and it was like 1,800 people chanting his name. So definitely those nights it definitely gets a little more emotional than other, because you can just feel it. You can feel it in the room. But the cool thing about this tour was just seeing that emotion. Like, you see our fans, and they dress up like us. They've got specifically, they're there to see us. They're red and black. They've got the makeup, and it's a whole new generation of kids too. There's a whole younger audience there now, and when you look out amongst all those people, and they're happy, they're smiling, they're in the moment, and I don't know if they want everybody else to see them that happy, but I see it. And it's just, I don't know, it was just a really, really cool feeling. There was no uh craziness in the audience. Everybody was just so happy, and it made me feel really good to know that something we did 22 years ago is still uh, just as popular. It's like I guess there's a whole new generation of younger kids there that just blows me away. And it shows me that the music's timeless, and it'll keep doing that, I think.
Yeah, it's crazy when you have people commenting on things that you did back in the day, and then you assume that they were also from back in the day, and then you kind of look at them and you're like, man, this guy's like a teenager, or this guy,
Yeah.
it's crazy that they're into the newer stuff.
This it's I don't know if it's their parents or had their kid, and some of it's the kids of the parents that listen to us, and then some of it's just a whole new generation. Like I do VIP meet and greets every day, and it was like every day I was just guessing, like, how old is this person, and this one kid walked up, and I keep say kid because, but a person walked up, and I went, how old are you? And they were like, I'm 14. And I went, 14? And I went, I thought you were 16. And then they would be like, oh, I was like, well, how long have you been listening to the band? And they would be like, oh, I've been listening to you since I was 11. And I'm just like, what? That was literally
Yeah.
four years ago. Or, so it's really cool to see that it's still living on. It makes me feel good, definitely worth my time of doing this.
Yeah, man. And also when you hit, if you can get to somebody that's 11 years old and they start listening to you, then like that kid is going to love you for the rest of his life. Those are some formative years. And, the bands that
Yeah.
I listened to when I was 11 are still like, held in such
Yeah.
high regard to me.
Yeah, and the thing that I realized too is not just the music, it's the look that we represented too, because I can see these younger kids, and I can see that they're dressed like us. They got the attire on, but to them it's the music, it's the attitude. We represented those black sheep kids of the family, because that's what we were, and those kids see that in us. And so when we come around on tour, it's like it's cool to see those fans come out.
So I went back and listened to my Joey Jordison interview I did in like 2017, 2018 when he was promoting Sensanium. And they were like, the
Mhm.
publicist was like, do not ask about Slipknot, do not talk about Slipknot. And she even said that no matter what, no matter how many times they said that to the journalists to not do it. They still did it. And I
Right.
got through the entire interview without asking him a single Slipknot question. And at the end, on the recording, he says, you know, thanks for a great interview. He's like, you have my number now. If you ever need anything, call me. But and it was such a
Mhm.
sweet, like, you know, normally you can get off these and say, hey man, keep in touch, blah blah. And then
Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah.
mean anything. But like he truly sounded sincere and that he
No,
wanted, you
I've
know,
heard him do that before, and he was being sincere. If he told you
yeah.
that, he was sincere about it. So
Yeah, it was I had forgotten that he had done that, and it was kinda like, "Oh, man," kinda going
right.
back and listening to that. But yeah, man, it is great though that you're out there kinda, you know, celebrating him and celebrating the music and playing those songs.
Yeah, I mean it's like I said, I we this last tour we just finished up. I pretty much kind of completed all the territories that we had toured. You know, we did the US, we did Australia, you know, we did the UK, we did, you know, we did all the places. And it was kind of cool that we ended in, you know, we saved sort of where we our biggest place for the last. The UK was just, it was just phenomenal. It really blew me away to see how many people were there celebrating that music. And you know, and it wasn't just the first album. Like we, you know, it was songs to everything. People knew the words to everything, and that was a great feeling.
It does look like on the tour that you're promoting for early next year
Mhm.
that you'll be kinda celebrating the first album. So are you kind of enjoying kinda going back and kinda celebrating periods of time at this point?
Yes, at this point, yes, because those periods of time are the parts I like in my life. There are certain points, some certain records where I reflect on and go, oh, maybe I don't like the record as much because it reminds me of a time.
Right.
But the Transylvania album being my first solo record, it was like I said, I felt like nothing could go wrong, and I almost felt like, you know, like, am I being punked? Did I really just get a record deal? They're letting me do what I want to do. They're letting me, you know, I had nobody telling me don't do this, you know, and oh, we're going to put you with this art director. So our video guy for Transylvania was the guy that did the Murderdolls first video and the artwork and everything, and he went on to do Motley Crue, and he did Marilyn Manson before that. But when I did my first video, they're like, "Oh, we're going to put you with Paul Brown, and you can use Night of the Living Dead as your background." I'm just like, "What?" You
Right.
know, so yeah, so that was a good time, and knowing that that turns 20 years old next year, right when we're doing this tour, I really wanted to go back and not necessarily play the album in its entirety or anything like that, because I didn't really like doing that. I did some shows like that. I don't like playing stuff in order like that. But we're definitely going to hit heavy on the first album, and probably the first three albums, because that's just kind of where my brain is. And the new album kind of reflects the first couple albums anyway. So we'll be sprinkling in some of the newer songs. And yeah, it's just going to be fun to get back to playing those songs because I've taken 2 years off of doing that.
Yeah, bands playing albums from start to finish can be tricky if they front loaded the record and you kind of get to the kind of throwaway tracks towards the end and you're just like, all right, well, probably should at least
Yeah, I mean,
saved
like,
one single to the end.
yeah, like my Transylvania record, I end it kind of spooky and dark, and it's just kind of very anticlimactic in a show setting. Uh, you know, because I don't think of records like that. I didn't really write that record to be like a live show. I wanted it to be more like a movie, the way it wrapped up. But the way turning that into a live show, it just would end on a bummer. I'm like, okay, now we're gonna play Bad Things again because we played it
Right.
second, you know.
Right.
So yeah, that's the only thing that's a bummer about doing those. That's why I didn't want to say, hey, we're going to do this album in its entirety. But we will play a lot of tracks off of it. And the cool thing about that first album, the songs are really short, so we can get a lot of those songs in into a good set time. Like even this Murder Doll set that we did in the UK, we were getting 20 songs in an hour and 15 minutes. And then we went to Europe and we were support for the other band, and we only cut 15 minutes off of our set, and we still played 15 songs.
Well, you were right. You know, you're writing a lot of that stuff on something that can only hold 3 minutes of music. So
Yeah, yeah. So luckily my songs aren't like long epic things like Typo Negative did, which was such a bummer when I used to see them. I'd be like, "Oh man, how many songs you playing? 6." It's
I
like,
think
what?
I saw Neurosis open for Soulfly, and I think they played 4 songs. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I
yeah.
toured with Typo Negative, and they were still one of my favorite bands, and I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
like, you could only play like 8 songs in a headline set for them. It's like, whoa. But
Yeah, love Typo Negative, love that I got to meet Peter Steele at least in my younger days.
yeah,
Um,
man. Again, they were another one of my. I put them in probably my top 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 2 bands ever toured with. Just a fun experience.
oh yeah, definitely. Um, I know you're gearing up for the new record, so you're posting photo shoots and things like that. Yeah, like everything's kind of coming together for the new record. So talk
Mhm.
about what you can of the new record and kind of direction and everything else.
Well, we finished it up this summer, and but I didn't immediately start doing photos and all that stuff. We just finished the recording. We just kind of took our time with it. I wanted to listen to it, make sure I liked everything, and want to go add anything back to it. But the way it all came together was it went really smooth. We toured earlier in the year with Cradle of Filth, and I came home and I knew I had to start writing, and I basically took 2 months of just writing by myself every day. And then I brought my drummer over to the house. He brought an electronic drum kit over to my garage, and I went, "Oh, cool! All right, here's a song I got." And we would just demo the songs live in person with each other. I didn't use a drum machine this time, which is what I used to do. I didn't want to deal with that, and the songs came together pretty quick, and instantly it reminded me of the first couple albums, and I think that's mainly because I went back to writing the music again. We parted ways with our longtime guitarist earlier this year, and so when it came to the writing process, I just kind of went back to what I did in the very beginning, because in the very beginning there was no Wednesday 13 band. It was me in my basement and
Right.
writing the song. So I kind of went back to doing that again.
I was gonna ask you if touring the Murder Doll stuff kind of influenced the new stuff. I mean, going back and playing that every day would kind of translate into the new music.
Yeah, it definitely did. I mean, I think sometimes uh, you'll start hearing people talk about bands or stuff, and you maybe start believing something that wasn't necessarily the case. So, like with Murder Dolls, my whole life I've always played in simple 3 chord kind of rock and roll bands, and people always call that easy and simple, and oh, what you do is easy to do. It's not complex like Dream Theater or something. And I guess
Right.
I kind of got in my mind, said, oh, I guess what we do really isn't that complex. And then on this last tour, we had Devil Driver's drummer. Devil
Mhm.
Driver's just a crazy, insane drumming,
Yeah.
and he got to these drumming parts for Joey's drumming parts, and he's like, "This shit is really hard. This shit is really hard to do. It's simple, but it's not simple." And so yeah, I realized kind of what I did was what Murder Dolls did was a special thing. It didn't have to be complex or anything. And I think over the last couple years, my records kind of went in a more metal direction, and I was maybe trying to do a little just experimental because I never done that in the past. But reflecting on this Murder Doll stuff in the last year or so, I've realized that's really what I specialize in. That's the natural thing to me, and I just went back to that. So it definitely helped shape the new music, and it just made me realize what I did was, again, it didn't change the world. It wasn't something brand new, but it had a style to it, and I don't think that's been really replicated, or I don't see it a lot in bands now, and we were just doing what our influences were. We were just imitating Motley Crue and Twisted Sister and Wasp, and sprinkling in all of our influences, and I just don't see that or hear that in a lot of newer music.
As this episode comes out a couple days before Christmas, I wanted to hit you with some from kind of looking back on Christmas, man. What was your favorite toy that you ever got as a kid for Christmas?
Well, I'm looking behind you there, and I see your Castle Grayskull. I think I was talking about this recently too. Like I just remember one particular Christmas that my parents were awesome to me at Christmas time. Huge believer in Santa Claus and the whole deal, and they went far and beyond. And I just remember one Christmas morning they had just it looked like a toy store in the living room. Like it was just top to bottom. And we lived in this little tiny trailer, which probably wasn't hard to make it look like a
Right.
toy store real quick. But I just remember in the center of the room, it was just walls and walls of just toys. But right in the center was Castle Grayskull in the box. And the artwork on that was like an album cover
Oh
almost,
yeah.
for a kid. And just I remember that was just the year and I was like, this is the greatest. I'm going to believe in Santa Claus as long as I possibly can here. And but yeah, that was. I mean, I had a lot of great Christmas, but that was one of the memories, and always just thinks back to the toys. That was just one of my cherished toys, and I still have like 3 of them.
Yeah, and even back then, man, that Castle Grayskull was not cheap. So they
No,
definitely
no.
it definitely hooked you up that year.
Mhm.
Favorite Christmas food?
Christmas food. I meant to go there last night. I just didn't go because my local grocery store didn't have them. The Little Debbie Christmas tree cakes.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know those?
Oh
You
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Okay, I think that someone told me they were really kind of like a southern thing for a while, but I do find them out here in California. So that is my favorite. I'm probably going to go try to find a box or two today.
And then last one is favorite drink. Is there like a Christmas drink that you kind of go to?
Um, I think I used to go to these little Christmas parties and they would make like that party punch, which I still don't really know what it was. It was like pineapple juice and
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
and grenadine and ginger ale and yeah, that was whatever the party punch is was always my favorite thing.
Was that? Are you talking like the big like hooch? What is it? Hooch or hunch punch or
Yeah, but
something like that? Like
it wasn't like spiked with booze or anything. It
oh
was
okay,
like
okay.
these were like the ones they would have like at uh you know
Like a
weddings
retirement
or
home or yeah, yeah, yeah. I know what you're
yeah,
talking
or like a baby
about.
shower or something
Okay.
something goofy like that. And I was always, as a little kid, I was always somehow at all these things, just popping in and drinking out of those things. So they were
Yeah.
always around
Wow.
Christmas too.
It's funny. I think you just unlocked a memory I haven't thought about in forever. But yeah, that big punch bowl of like it's like green and it's like kind of
Yeah.
sparkly and yeah,
Yeah,
I
exactly. You're
know
like, I don't know
exactly what you're
why this
talking
is
about.
so good, but I want this.
I want some more of it, man.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap up, man. Obviously the new album coming out soon, or early next year.
Mhm.
The 20 what is it? There's no such thing as Monsters North American 2025 tour.
Mhm.
All through what is that?
It's like
March and
38.
April.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
it starts March all through April, ends May 3rd, I believe, or 5th or something. I don't know exactly. But it's like 38 shows. We'll be playing new songs off the new album. There'll be a new video out before that. You'll have all this stuff before the tour even comes into play, and I just can't talk about it. It's all under
I
wraps.
know.
It's like I want to tell you guys everything. I want to put all this stuff out because I feel like I've been sitting on it for so long. But it'll be worth the wait. And I think with this record, every time I put a record out, at least the last several I put out, I always go, I don't know if the fans are gonna like it. But this is the one I know I know the fans are gonna like it.
I think you're just supposed to say like this is the heaviest record we've ever done.
This is the best thing I've ever done. This is the best thing I've done recently.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right, last question. What's the most recent toy you've bought or been gifted?
Recent toy. I'm looking around because usually I keep all my new stuff here. That's a good question. I don't really know what my most recent
Or is there
recent.
a do you have a prized possession back there that's maybe
I did
hard to
get this. I
find?
showed I showed this on a story. I got this on my last tour. Someone brought this to me on my. This is my first actual
Oh,
award,
nice.
like legit award. Murderdolls got this.
Okay.
This is our Metal Hammer Golden God Awards that we got. and our publicist Michelle, who passed away earlier this year, one of her friends brought this to me, and so this was something I was never expecting to even see again. Was gifted back to me. So this was
That's
something
awesome.
that's just a cool memory for. Usually people bring me toys, and I did get a lot of toys on the tour, but I would say of all the things I got, this was the one. So
Yeah, that's definitely an awesome piece.
yeah, very cool.
All right, Wednesday. Well, always great chatting with you. Good luck with the upcoming record, upcoming tour, all that great stuff, and we will see you on the road soon.
Awesome, dude. Thank you for having me. See you next time.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, dude. Later.